Welcome or welcome back to Bean and Bracket Factory and episode 3 of the Austin 7 special front suspension project. So in episode 2 I focused on the front axle, and in this episode I'm focusing on the radius links which connect the axle to the chassis. So let's get to it. So this is the plan. At this end I've got these cupped brass, cups I suppose. It's not a washer, it's a sort of cup, and it rotates on this half sphere. Now this is what was on the car originally, and I'm going to keep this because I don't want to fit any spherical joints because it doesn't seem to be in keeping. So that obviously rotates on there. It will also need to rotate in that direction very slightly, so I might have to sort of do a bit of fettling and relieving of these edges. That's going to go on there, and the plan is to use a section of tube which slides over the top like that, and machine a disc which fits in the back of there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this thing diagonally, and I will weld a bit of tube at an angle like that onto there. That's the plan anyway. And the whole thing is held in with a heavy spring and a nut on there, so it will rotate that way but also rock from side to side that way, a very small amount. At this end I'm going to make a couple of pins which come through, and I have a flat and a hole, and these track rod ends will tie into there. The bottom tube, this almost slides in there, so I'm going to machine it down a bit so it does slide in there and then weld it up. The top tube, again, I'm going to use these, and I'm going to connect them and basically butt weld them like that. So that's the plan. So time to get cracking. Time to make one of the pins. I'm starting off with this 20mm bar. So this is a kind of blank for the pin. Now I need to mill a flat on here, drill a hole, and ultimately put some threads on this end. So that's the two flats milled on the sides. Next step is to drill a hole. Hole for the pin has now been drilled, and this obviously slots into there like that. So I just need to grind a radius on here so that the thing actually swivels in it. So I finished that pin, and of course I made another one. I've actually got to make 4, 2 for each side. And the way it's going to work is that this rod end goes in there like that. This pin goes through like that, and obviously that is going to be your lower rod, which runs back to the pickup point. So now I need to swing the attention to the other end. This bit, where is it? This bit there. Sort out that, make that. So there's my disc in there. I've marked where I'm planning to cut it. It's a bit of an inexact science marking diagonal cuts on a tube. So the idea is now is bandsaw that off and tack weld that the disc in place. So let's do that next. So I made 2 of these. That's the prototype, which didn't go brilliantly. I kind of mucked it up, tried to use the bandsaw, used a handsaw and cut 2 of these. These discs fit in there like that, and the bearing fits in there like that. Looks like that. So then what I've done, because I've made 2 of these, I've welded the disc in and I've drilled a hole in the middle, so that now fits on like that. So I can show you what it looks going to look like on the car. So there it is on the car. It obviously rotates that way, and I'll also make sure that it can actually rotate that way slightly. And all that remains to be done now is to get a length of tube, and I've got to cut it at that end at the right angle, and then it's going to feed into the rod end at that end. So I get cutting and I get fettling. Using an angle grinder and a file and an angle grinder again, I've notched the top of this pipe here, this tube, and this piece is going to go in, fit like that. There's no particularly quick way of doing this unless you've got a notching tool. It's just elbow grease and filing and angle grinding. So what I'll do is, that's pretty much in the right place. I'm just going to tack it with a couple of tacks first, just to double check the angle, and if it's good, then I can weld it all up. Just a couple of tacks, didn't even use any filler, and it all looks pretty good. It's in line with there, so time to weld it up. And here it is, the lower link has been welded up. Well, it's been welded up at this end anyway, and this end, it's a very tight fit into the end of the tube. So what I'm going to do is run a weld just around there, and this create a sort of fillet, and that'll be plenty strong enough. If you want to make it even stronger, you can drill a hole in here and then pull it with weld and fill it up. Probably not going to do that. I'm not going to actually weld that until I've made them on both sides, just so that I can make sure they're completely matching. I also measured from the spring to the rear axle and found out that it was different by about 5 millimeters, because of course the whole axle can basically pivot around this junction to a small degree. So I kind of knocked it with a hammer and straightened it up. So I think I'm going to leave it pretty much there for this particular episode. In the next episode, you've guessed it, I'm going to be tackling the top link. The top link will kind of come in there. It'll attach there somehow. I've got a few ideas. I haven't finalised yet, but I want to come up with something which is, not too... Well, I won't use any rose joints, obviously. It's going to be more in keeping with the works cars of the 30s. So you'll have to tune into next thrilling episode to find out how that all goes. Because I'm going to stop doing this now, because there's a BSA over there calling my name. Start me. So that's all for now. Hope you've enjoyed that. Until next time. Cheerio.